All right, welcome to another edition of the Hardwood Huddle. That's right, we are back, playoff edition. I am Randy Zelia from backsportspage.com, and we thank you for joining us. I renamed our co-host instead of it being Lord Vader, the Sith Master, or whichever way you want to call it. He is just now Lord Ingram. Bill Ingram is here with us. Bill, how are you, my friend?
Well, considering the writing on the latest stuff, because the Star Trek writers are doing such an amazing job with their new shows, and Boba Fett was just embarrassing. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's Admiral.
Admiral Ingram. That's right. He is, and right now we are live over our Facebook page, my Facebook page. We're also live on YouTube. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor that we're live talking hoops right now. And Bill, let's get into it. Before we jump into the playoff matchups and the playoff teams, let's talk about some of the teams that are not in the playoffs that have been making some news. And of course, you and I can pound our chests and be proud because we were 110% correct about the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yes, we were. Well, of course, Russell Westbrook being a player who has to have the ball in his hands to be effective, and LeBron James being a player who has to have the ball in his hands to be effective. Gosh, that didn't work for some reason. I can't think why. We're going to blame Frank Vogel, but Anthony Davis played about 20 games. LeBron played, I think, 56 games. Russell Westbrook led the team in almost every statistical category. What was Vogel supposed to do? What was Westbrook supposed to do when you're set up to fail as thoroughly as this Lakers roster was set up to fail?
Yeah, it really was. And I was in Los Angeles this past weekend for a wedding, and when all the stuff with Frank Vogel getting let go, I got to tell you, I'm not shocked by it, but I'm very disappointed that Frank Vogel, who, again, he said it best, I'm just a coach. They gave me the team. These are the guys that gave me. And it falls apart like this. This is not Frank Vogel's fault. This is Rob Pelinka and ownership's fault. Look, you're investing in a 37-year-old LeBron James and Anthony Davis, who, if you're lucky, will get about 50 to 60 games in a year.
Yep.
And Russell Westbrook, who's Mr. Triple-Double. And then besides those three, what else do you have? You have Carmelo Anthony, who is ring chasing at this point. It's obvious that he's ring chasing at this point. And his legacy, if he doesn't get a ring, feels empty. Because as good of a scorer as Carmelo Anthony is, him not having a championship ring, sort of out of that crew from the 2003 draft, makes him look like the outcast. Because even Darko Milicich's got a ring. God, come on.
Well, of course, Carmelo being a player who never played any defense is part of the issue. But hey, there's a lot of guys who never got championships. Tracy McGrady did finally get one, but he didn't get it until he was a non-factor with the San Antonio Spurs. But there's a guy who was a great scorer, did a lot of things well. Not a great defender, but the circumstances that he was put in. The best team Carmelo was on was that Denver team with Allen Iverson. And of course, George Karl famously said it to me that the issue with that team, they were too selfish. Both Carmelo and Iverson were very selfish. I don't think Iverson ever got over that in his career. Carmelo did, but by the time he got over it, he really wasn't on teams where a championship was viable, especially Portland, the last team, and now the Lakers. So, there's a lot of great players that never won a championship.
You and I both said last year that Portland team would have been the best chance for them to do it when they had Carmelo Anthony and Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, and Nurkic. That team had the talent. They needed a solid coach to sort of who's been through the wars, like a Rick Carlisle. Rick Carlisle would have been a perfect coach for that team.
Yeah,
but it didn't help out. Portland is another team that didn't make the playoffs. Obviously, I'd be honest with you, Bill. Now that the season's over, Damian Lillard might be on the block. I'm beginning to believe that Damian Lillard will not start the season next year in Portland.
The thing is, he wants to be in Portland, and that's a big factor for Damian. They are saying, and they made all the moves, of course, Dealing McCollum. I really don't understand why they weren't better. And it's not just coaching. I think Terry Stotts is a really underrated coach. I just think maybe Damian Lillard is not the leader that you have to be to win a championship, because everything else was there. You had shooting, you had defense, you had interior, you had deep bench, and Portland just couldn't put it together. At some point you got to say, well, who was the star player? And that's Damian Lillard. So they're saying they've got cap space, all the things they need to put a potential championship team around him. Who's going to Portland exactly? When you look at free agents, who could go there? The top 2 free agents could go to Portland, and they're still not a championship contending team. So I think it kind of comes down to what Damian is really looking to accomplish in Portland and their ability to keep him there.
No, I agree with you. I think Damian Lillard really likes being in Portland, but right now he just doesn't have horses to run with him to try to compete for a championship. We'll get back to Portland in a minute or two. The other team in the Western Conference that sort of fell flat on their face, that had a little bit of hope in the beginning of the season, was the Sacramento Kings. Wanted to see how you feel about the fact that that young team just let go of Elvin Gentry as their coach, and wouldn't be surprised to see Mr. Vogel show up in Sacramento. I don't know how you feel about that.
I would like to see Frank Vogel in a situation with a team that is more prepared to win. Now, although, Sacramento has a bunch of young pieces, they have some really nice talent. They traded away a bunch of talent thinking they were going to make it into the play-in tournament. I know you and I didn't agree with them, but that was what they thought. They neglected to trade Harrison Barnes, who may be at the peak of his value right now. And, I just don't know what their upside is. I think there will be better opportunities for Frank Vogel, quite honestly, when the dust settles and people start to get fired.
Okay, so let's talk about that real quick. Right now, I can think of one team that would probably use him that's in a winning situation right now. That'll be a better fit for them, for better fit for Frank Vogel, and that might be Brooklyn. If this thing with Steve Nash falls sideways this year, don't be surprised if Nash gets let go and then they bring in Vogel. That would be real interesting, wouldn't it?
Well, that would be, because now that's a team that has the talent in place. I think it would be unfair to fire Steve Nash, who what's he had? He's had the biggest mishmash of, Kyrie couldn't get vaccinated, so you didn't have Kyrie for home games. You didn't have him for a lot of games, and then when he finally was healthy, you didn't have him for home games. Then they deal a bunch of the roster. James Harden goes. You get Ben Simmons. Of course, you got some nice pieces, Drummond and Curry. There's been such turnover on that Nets team. If they manage to come out of the playoffs with a series win, that's really, I think, will be a testament to Steve Nash, because there's been zero consistency. You have a lot of talent, but when you have that much turnover, no matter what the talent is, you need a training camp to go through. You need everybody there and go, okay, Seth Curry, great. Andre Drummond, great. Now Kyrie's playing. Ben Simmons, great. Kyrie, KD. It's awfully challenging. We say this all the time on this show. It's not NBA 2K. It's not as simple as trade 3 players for a superstar and now you're going to win 82 games. It's really not how it works. There has to be chemistry. And, for Steve Nash to be held accountable for any failure in Brooklyn is laughable. That's not saying they don't do it. That's kind of how the NBA works. But I think Sean Marks now at the helm, he's a little smarter than that. And I'd be shocked if you scapegoat Steve Nash for any perceived failures on the part of the team.
No, I agree with you on that too. I'm just trying to think about another team that's competing for a championship that you would really want to make a coaching change. Just think that Vogel would be the guy who takes you to that next level.
I have it for you.
Who?
It's the Utah Jazz.
Yeah. Okay.
Have all the pieces. Everything is there. They have defense. They have great shooting. They have interior presence. They just don't mesh. They can't figure out. I mean, you watch highlight reel after highlight reel where Rudy Gobert is under the basket and there's no pass. And he's just standing there waiting and they don't get him the ball. I think, and this is not a knock on Quinn Snyder. I think Quinn Snyder is a very, very good coach.
I think he lost the team, though. I think he's lost the team. And look, they played better the last couple weeks of the season. They really did. But that is,
I mean, to be honest, that stretch where Snyder won coach of the week, coach of the month, they played a bunch of lottery teams. You know?
Yeah. Well, you can say that about a lot of teams. Another team that didn't make the playoffs that always seems to make a discussion, and it's been a continuous discussion when this team gets eliminated from either the playoffs or playoff contention since 1974, since 1975, is the New York Knicks. And I always get to have fun saying the New York Knicks and no longer in championship contention. But look, the simple fact of the matter is I'm hearing now from them saying, well, if we only had a point guard. Well, you should have pulled the trigger on the Julius Randle, Russell Westbrook deal when you had the opportunity at the trade deadline, and then both teams might be in the playoffs.
Imagine Westbrook with the collection of guys. That would be a great fit for Westbrook right there. The Lakers were not a good fit. The Knicks, yes, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, I think I think that's what it is. Hey, Bill, you know what we want to do right now real quick? I want to also ask you very, very quickly, very fairly ask this, and this is such a fair question too. These teams like Orlando, Detroit, Chicago. No, not Chicago. I'm sorry. Chicago made it in. I'm sorry. Orlando, Detroit, Houston. Some of these teams that are be draft bound. Mm-hmm. Okay. Some of those teams are just young teams.
Yeah.
The Knicks are not. The Knicks actually like you know where I'm going with that, right? It's like these teams are in the lottery. The Knicks were in the playoffs last year. You know, like you look at some of the teams that were out of the playoffs last year or in the playoffs last year that are out this year. A lot of them had significant reasons. Portland, was out with Damian Lillard, had whatever the reasons is. The Knicks didn't have they lost Derrick Rose and they shut down Kemba Walker. You're telling me the reasons why you're not in the playoffs this year is because Derrick Rose and Kemba Walker weren't healthy. If you're at this point of the stage of their careers, if they're the most important pieces on that team, what are we doing if you're the Knicks?
I think it's more the fact that Kemba in particular didn't work out there. And when they got Kemba, I really thought, I believe we were on the record on this show, I love Kemba Walker. I think he's a very underrated point guard. Didn't work. The thing is, if you're not there are multiple tiers of players in the NBA. And if you're a superstar player, if you're LeBron, if you're KD, if Luka would be, you'll fit anywhere. You can put these guys on any team and they're going to make the playoffs. It doesn't matter. Giannis Antetokounmpo would be that type of player too. But for the next tier down, the majority of players in the league, fit is what matters. And Kemba is one of those guys. I would say John Wall is one of those guys. You have guys that if the fit is right, they're amazing. But if the fit is not right, they're not very good at all. And I think there is a fit for Kemba somewhere in the NBA. I thought it would be with the Knicks. I really did because of the talent around him. But it wasn't. It just wasn't. And so I think the real issue with the Knicks, you didn't have a floor leader. You didn't have that point guard who would get everybody in the quarterback, who would get everybody in the right spot at the right time, call the right play at the right time. You just didn't have that. So otherwise, you just got too much redundant talent. And the guys who were healthy many of them were redundant. And that didn't work well.
And Tibbs is guilty of not wanting to play young players.
Oh my gosh! Shocking. Tom Thibodeau?
No.
What?
No. Tibbs doesn't want to play young players.
What a change from his long and illustrious career as a coach in the NBA, that he doesn't want to play young players. That's the main.
What a jerk. What a jerk.
And when you hire a coach, you got to understand who he is, right? I love the Rick Carlisle hire because even though Rick Carlisle is a championship level coach, he also is someone who will develop talent. You know, when you put him in Indiana and they made the decision, which kind of surprised me, to pull the plug and just mail it in and go young and trade some pieces. Carlisle's going to get the most out of his talent. He's going to develop talent. He's got a coaching staff that will do that. He's done it repeatedly in Indiana. He certainly did it here in Dallas. But Thibodeau, not that guy, not at all.
Yeah, and also too, you know, you look at what the way Tibbs handles things, the way he presents things. He didn't have a leg to stand on, and I'm wondering if he's going to make it out out of the season this year, because look, yeah, they didn't make the playoffs, but at the same time, you know, he really turned, like, the media turned on him real quick here.
Yeah,
but this is what we knew about him going in.
I mean, no matter who the coach is, when they're struggling to even be a 500 team, the media is going to turn on you.
Yeah, like, look, you and I knew what this was going to be.
Yeah,
we knew what this was going to be. So let's not give the teams that are out. Well, we have plenty of times to talk about what these teams need to do. But the Lakers and the Knicks were the top stories of the teams that were not sticking. We're not going to make it this year. So let's talk about the playoffs. Let's start in the West for once. You know, the play-in games. Minnesota defeated the Los Angeles Clippers the other night. Fun game. You made a very interesting point. Karl Anthony Towns is not a Batman. He is a Robin. He's a nice piece, but he's not going to be the guy. He reminds me so much right now of Kevin Love.
Yeah.
Kevin Love is going to give you 25 points a game and 12 rebounds in Minnesota, but while in Cleveland, he'll give you 12 and 10.
Yeah. Well, because what we've learned about Karl Anthony Towns in his years in the league, he'll put up great numbers, but he doesn't help you win.
No.
He helps you get into the lottery. And he got them into the lottery enough that they finally got Batman, Anthony Edwards, who I like to call Goose, even though he probably wouldn't get that reference. But every time I hear the name Anthony Edwards, hey, Top Gun is coming out this summer. I just think Goose. That's just what I do. So but Anthony Edwards is Batman. He's stunning. He was outstanding in their play-in game. And Karl Anthony Towns was an afterthought, and that's fine. You go stand in the paint, get a few rebounds. Thanks. Edwards is going to run the show, and that's just fine.
And yeah, that is fine. And look, Patrick Beverley obviously got fined, but he was a lot of fun during that game. And from a Clipper perspective, look, Paul George is doing everything he can. The guy's not in basketball shape right now. He's been sitting out for a long time.
Yeah.
It's not there. And obviously Kawhi is not playing this year. He's the only guy I know that every other season he has to wear a name tag saying, "Hello, my name is Kawhi," when he shows up to training camp.
2 for 1. You pay him for 2 seasons, he gives you 1. That's what. Yeah. And you got to check with his uncle to find out which season he's going to play because no one else knows.
And then obviously last night's game, the Pelicans and the Spurs. Look, we didn't even expect the Spurs to be there too, and
Greg Popovich right there that they could have dealt Jacob Poeltl. They didn't. He wanted to get his win total, which he did. Then he wanted to make the playoffs, which he did. What the Spurs need, they don't have a star player. They have a lot of Robins on that team. You give the Spurs a young stud player and watch out. But it's a testament to Popovich what he got out of that squad. The bottom line is, though, the Pelicans have a couple of that move for McConnell was the
genius move.
McCollum was
move of the year.
And Brandon Ingram just needed some help, and they got him the help. And CJ is talk about a complimentary talent. Imagine if Zion actually is he going to play?
Who?
He and Kawhi off on a desert island somewhere?
They're
playing in the NBA. Because that's all that's missing with the Pelicans.
cheeseburger eating contest. That's where they are. They enter the Nathan's hot dog winning competition. They do on Coney Island every year. Who's gonna win? Zion, Kawhi. They can't go on the court, so now they'll take it to the to the table. And then last night the Pelicans and like with the Spurs we were talking about. Look, Pelicans. I don't like their chances against the Clippers. I think the Clippers are a better team than the Pelicans right now. I think Ty Lue is a better coach than what the Pelicans have right now. It's a testament to what they were able to do, but I think the Clippers will get that 8th seed and then match up with the Phoenix Suns. And then if they can make it a 5, that will either be a 5 to 6 game series, against the Suns. Maybe 5.
Well, to me, if you look at the Clippers, if Paul George is Paul George, that's a win for the Clippers. But he's not, as you mentioned earlier. And I really think the Pelicans have a shot here. I think that with Brandon Ingram, my cousin, of course, Brandon Ingram and C.J. McCollum alone have the firepower to beat the Clippers. And with the Clippers, it's going to be Paul George and then
Reggie Jackson.
There's some possibilities, a lot of guys who can step up, but I still come down to you have 2 legit stars with the Pelicans, and both of them are now healthy and they're ready to go. And with the Clippers, you have 1 legit star who is not completely healthy and a bunch of other guys. And I don't care coaching, it's still talent wins. And right now, the Pelicans have more talent.
Yeah, they do. They do. It's gonna be very, very interesting to see who ends up playing the Phoenix Suns. The 2-7 series now is sort of set, and the Wolves versus the Grizzlies. That's gonna be a fun series with a lot of young players. If you want to see up and down basketball, I think that's going to be the series to watch. That's not going to be a 95-88 series. You know what I mean? That's going to be a 125-120 series throughout. And I think Minnesota will probably get a game or two, but I think Memphis is just a better overall team with more experience, battle tested for what they went through over the last 2 seasons. Memphis, in my mind, I think we have to talk about Memphis seriously in a conference final. First time in franchise history.
The fact that Ja Morant missed that huge stretch of games, didn't they win every game?
Yeah. Everyone's like, well, like I remember saying to you when the Nets were getting to play, I'm like, well, this should be a layup for the Nets to finally get the thing on. And they destroyed them. And I'm sitting there like, decimated them.
Yeah. I think, the thing that I love about Memphis, and we talked about this in the preseason one that we did, what they lacked was toughness. They were a little soft on the inside. And so what they do, they went out and got Steven Adams, who is the ultimate, put on your heart and just knock some people around. And I think what we saw over the course of the season was that impact. And one player can have that impact. Steven Adams is that guy with his 18 brothers, and he had to beat everybody,
I'm trying to figure out the right comparison of Steven Adams from guys from the past, and I think he's his own category right now because he's a guy who he's not going to score you 25 points, but he's going to get you a good fit. He's going to rebound the ball and put it back in. Yeah. And that's what you need. And that is what you need.
The impact on Memphis that Patrick Beverley has had on Minnesota. It's a toughness thing. It's a gut check. It's just there. You have to have a level of mental toughness. Valanciunas will put up numbers. He's not tough. Steven Adams is not going to put up the numbers of a Valanciunas, but he's so dang tough. And they don't need him to put up the offensive numbers. They need him to rebound and play defense. And he is the Charles Oakley of the modern NBA. He's found a way to be a defensive factor in a league that defense is not allowed anymore. So, hey, tip of the hat to the Grizzlies, that move. And the fact that all those young guys have come together, they're all coming at the right time. They're all coming into their own at the right time. And that's why Memphis sits in the number 2 spot, which that's a huge leap for them in my mind.
And then you have the 3-6 series, the Warriors and the Nuggets.
Yeah.
I think the other 2 West series, the Warriors and Nuggets, and the Mavs and the Jazz, are like the 10 o'clock games on
They
the
are.
weekends. Those are
Yeah.
the 10 o'clock games on the weekends because it's basketball purists like you and I will watch those types of games.
Yep.
The casual fans, the schedule makers don't want their national audience watching these games. They're sitting there saying, these 4 teams will not be in the final. And you can't say that about the Warriors because
Nope.
it's still Steph. But you know what? This is just not sexy matchups for television right now. I know they love Luka, but Luka is not there.
Coaching the Utah Jazz, it's a 4-0 for Utah. But you don't. And as we talked about, Quinn Snyder has lost the team, and they haven't figured out how to use their mismatches. They should destroy Dallas inside. Gobert should have MVP numbers. He should average 30 points, 20 rebounds, 10. He should average a freaking triple-double. He should be the Russell Westbrook of centers in this series. I don't have any confidence in that happening. And if they don't use that advantage, Dallas is going to eat them alive on the perimeter. Luka Doncic, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Jalen Brunson. You can't try to match them on the perimeter, but my gut tells me that's what we're going to see from Utah, and it's going to give Dallas a huge edge in the series. Utah, I don't think they will.
And the other part of that too is with Luka. Luka's coming off an injury. Luka's coming off an injury, and I think
yeah, if it's for real, if Luka can't go, forget it. Utah takes the series. But I think we're seeing some chess being played on Luka's day to day. He's questionable. We don't know. I think that's all crap. I think Luka comes out and drops a triple-double in the first game.
That's fair. I think that's fair. Obviously, so that's just round 1.
Yep.
Let's shift over to the East. The Nets beat the Cavs in the first playing game, so they claim the 7th seed. Which, congratulations, you win a free trip to Boston.
Yeah. Where Boston has finally figured it out.
Yeah, and then you have you had the Hawks beating the Hornets, which surprised me a little bit because I thought the Hornets were on the upswing, but they had injuries this year. LaMelo Ball, they really need another scorer to go with LaMelo Ball. Yeah, and it's interesting to see what they can go out and get. Maybe a Harrison Barnes to go with. You make that deal?
North Carolina.
Yeah.
The Hornets always struggle to sell tickets. I think they might sell a few tickets if Harrison Barnes came. You could play him at power forward.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, that would be a great fit.
And then after they get Harrison Barnes, then James Harden's going to force a trade to there.
Right? He'll come in 30 pounds overweight, hanging out in the strip clubs. Wait, Charlotte.
There's only like one there. There's only like one of those there. So, but with that being said, it's a shame that the Hornets, lose that playing game. Atlanta, who you and I both said one of the biggest disappointments this year. Like I know injuries hit every team, and we were talking before about KD, his injury sort of derailing the Nets season, but I can't figure out what the Hawks' excuse is because they had a lot of their guys. Yes, they were a little bit in and out, but they had them. They all decided to run it back. The Nets made trades and so other types of moves. It just didn't work. The Atlanta Hawks.
They had a chemistry issue. They traded Cam to the Knicks.
Yep.
That righted the ship for a little while. Then they were trying to deal John Collins because, oh my God, they overpaid him. Who knew? Everybody knew you overpaid him.
You and I both said that was the biggest waste of money ever. You could have gone. I would have gone out and buy land in Atlanta instead of spending money on John Collins. That would have just.
So then they're trying to deal him, but you just signed him to this huge contract that he's not going to earn. I get that you're Atlanta and you have trouble drawing free agents, so you got to overpay to keep the guys you have. But John Collins,
no, it doesn't work for me.
So,
yeah, that one didn't work. And then you look at what you're going to have. You're either going to have Atlanta or Cleveland against the Miami Heat. I think if Atlanta's there and they have their guys, it's a hell of a series. Cleveland, if I'm Miami, I'm sitting there, and the Cavaliers come in, I'll be like, let's just do what we have to do and get this done with, because Cleveland is just injury riddled.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
It's too
Like,
bad. They hit their stride a couple of times, and every time they started to really put it together, more injuries.
Rubio, Sexton,
Happens in
Jared Allen. Yeah, it was tough for them.
As long as Jimmy Butler doesn't try to fight Eric Spoelstra, it should be good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, been there, done that. Okay. Then you have a very interesting. We'll go back to the Nets Celtics in a minute. The 3-6 matchup is very interesting. Philadelphia and Toronto. Nobody wants to play Toronto because nobody wants to admit that there's players on their teams that are not vaccinated and they can't cross the border.
That's it.
So
can't play because he's not. I guess he got the first shot, not the what.
Yeah, I thought it was a league requirement at this point. Like
the A team, where anytime they needed to get on a plane, they had to drug Mr. T so that they could put him on the plane, and then he'd wake up and he'd be on the plane. To me, it's like, hey, take a nap over there. Oh, what happened? Oh, I don't know, but now you can play in Toronto. Like
I'm just shocked. I'm more shocked we just got an A-team reference. That's what I'm more shocked about. I was
Kyrie when they get on the plane, like the team plane, and he falls asleep. You just go up and go, and now great, now you can play. Why? Oh, I don't know, but you can play now.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other story for another time. But I'm laughing though because of the reality is now this whole thing with Toronto. You're sitting here going, all right, well, these guys can't play. Like Nick Nurse, like the fact that Nick Nurse didn't get Coach of the Year this year is a joke to me. Like Monty Williams did a hell of a job, but they predicted to do that again this year.
Monty had a team.
Yeah, Monty had a team. Nick Nurse was having Canadian tryouts this year to see who could play basketball. Okay, congratulations.
The hockey guys could play.
He's like, oh my God, I found a 6'8" guy in Canada. Let's see if he can play basketball. And then they put him on the court, and it works. Nick Nurse, heck of a job. I do think that they're going to give Philly a run for their money. And I think
he's going to try really hard to shoot them out of the series. He's going to try really hard.
I think that the Toronto Raptors, if there's any Eastern Conference lower seed that can knock out a top seed and maybe even be favored in the series, I think it's the Toronto Raptors over the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah.
I think that's a given. The 4-5 matchup, I'm sorry, that's the 4-5 matchup is the Milwaukee Bucks versus the. Did I miss this? No, it's the 3-6. This is the 3-6 matchup. The Toronto and Philly was a 4-5. The 3-6 is Milwaukee and the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, because the Bulls. Yeah,
so the Bulls. Talk about injury ridden. DeMar DeRozan, Lonzo Ball hasn't been playing at all. That's another team that's limping in the playoffs that really had a really tough March and April so far.
We did.
I think Milwaukee easily gets to round 2 in this. I think Chicago gets a game, or maybe a 2.
8-1. Chicago looked so good for so much of the season, and then it's like the closer it got to the games that mattered, and DeMar DeRozan was having an MVP year until April started, and he just does this. It's like DeMar DeRozan goes, "Oh, April, are we playing baseball? Where's my bat? What's that?" Like, it's just bizarre. Some players are like that, and it's too bad. Chicago had a really good season until mid-March or so. But come on, Milwaukee, they had injuries early in the season. They've overcome them. Everybody's healthy now, and you got Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the guy, he's a beast on both ends of the floor. I don't know if Chicago, they probably get a game, but more than one game.
No, I think we're pushing it to get more than one game. I think. And I also look at Milwaukee too. I feel like there's still something missing. And just remember last year, they were Kevin Durant big toe away from not being where they were. So I think this is going to be a little bit more, what they say, repeating is always harder than winning the first one. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens with Milwaukee. And then we'll talk about that 2-7 Nets Celtics series. Look, Boston has played very, very well. Jared Zero and I were yelling at each other through text about this series because he's out in Boston and he's telling me, don't sleep on their inside guys, even with Robert Williams out. And I'm sitting there saying, look, you have Jaylen Brown, who's an excellent player, Jason Tatum, excellent player, and Marcus Smart is the definitive number 3 guy on that team.
Yeah,
there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I look at what the Nets have now. You've heard the speculation that Ben Simmons is going to play in this series. From what they said they need,
honestly, I don't believe it.
Well, if he does, you don't need a lot out of him. You need him to play defense. If he gives you 20 minutes a game and he's playing stellar defense, what he does on the offensive side is he makes you stay honest on Kyrie and KD. Because he's a third option out there, just like Seth Curry does. And if you put Ben Simmons out there with Seth Curry, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, there's no double. There's no double. And look,
3. Whoever you double, you're giving up a 3.
You're giving up a 3. But the Nets actually have to play smart and get to the basket. Yes. The Nets cannot afford to get into a shooting match with those 3 guys.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is anything that Tatum, Brown, and Smart throw up, they don't have big name bigs, but the guys they will have will rebound the ball if they're not careful.
Yeah.
And just because in transition, the Celtics were number 2 or number 3 in the league in transition offense. So that means they were doing it on the defensive side of the ball. The only way you do that is you have to take the best percentage shot possible. Kyrie and KD can't fall in love with the 3-point line. Seth Curry cannot fall in love with the 3-point line. They have to get to the basket.
Be off the ball, catch it. He's going to be feeding off of those double teams that are going to happen. He'll be wide open. I mean, yeah. Seth Curry can shoot the 3. An open Seth Curry, I'll take that 3. That's a layup.
Right, but I'm saying that those other 2.
The Celtics don't have the ability to deal with Andre Drummond inside. And that's where I think that trade, as much as Daryl Morey was so happy, reunited, and it feels so good. We got Andre Drummond. We got a beast inside. We got Seth Curry on the outside. Whether Ben Simmons plays or not, Philly, we talked about it at the time. The Nets made out like bandits. And I think this series in particular gave them the pieces they need to take advantage of it.
Right. And I also think that, again, you can't let those guys play in transition. And Andre Drummond, I think that's actually the Celtics' Achilles' heels. They don't go to the basket. They don't go into the basket and take advantage of the best shot available. Andre Drummond, if you dump it down to Andre Drummond, Nick Claxton, and some of the other bigs that they have, LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, if he can get off the bench. Mm-hmm. Look, the Nets, I honestly think the Nets have a real fighter's chance to win this series. I think
the thing is the Celtics have that continuity advantage. They have all been healthy. They've played together, and that matters when the game is on the line. If it's close, that might be the difference for Boston. If it's not close, I mean, it's possible it won't be close, So, but that's where you're looking at talent. The Nets have the talent, but they don't have the continuity of having been together all season and fighting through the wars. The Celtics peaked about 3 weeks before the end of the season. That's too bad. Maybe it'll click back into place, but they know each other. They've all been there. They've been healthy. They've situations. And that in the playoffs can be a difference maker for sure. That's the advantage for Boston. Talent for the Nets, continuity for the Celtics.
And a 5-game win streak going now for the Nets going in. But the problem in that 5-game win streak is the team they've won games, but they just haven't looked good doing it.
No, I mean, great won. You're right. But a couple of those games were like, what, they won?
Like you're up 20 in Cleveland. You don't have a 6-point game or a 6 to 8 point game with a minute and a half left. You don't squander that lead, and that's what happened. But I will say the Nets and the Raptors are the 2 teams right now who I think can score a first-round upset and get into the round 2. After that, look, Milwaukee, the TV people want the Nets and the Bucks in a round 2. That's what they want. And I think for the Nets, for their story, for their real opportunity to win a championship. Correct me if I'm wrong. They need to lose to Milwaukee one more year to make next year that big overcoming thing. I hate to say it, but like you look at what the Bulls had to go through against Detroit back in the day. You needed the Bulls to, when they finally got over that hurdle, it was a big thing. For Durant, you have said it on this show multiple times, and not about the injuries and the missed games, but he is the best player, best scorer in the NBA. I don't know if it's fair to call him the best player in the NBA, but he's the best scorer in the NBA. But he's won 2 championships with the Golden State Warriors. But for him to validate his career and for him to win it with his team, he needs to do it either this season or next season. And he has to avenge the loss from last year and beat the Bucks. I think that has to happen.
KD is also not getting any younger. Granted, he's missed a whole bunch of games, so there's not as much mileage on him as, say, LeBron James. But, yeah, I thought it was ironic that he left the Warriors to win it on his own, but he needed Kyrie Irving.
Well, why didn't he do that, though? Like, I would have had more respect, and I feel the same way about KD now, not because he's on the Nets. Remember, my divorce with the Nets happened when they went to left New Jersey to go to Brooklyn. You know, I got my lava lamp back. I gave them their tickets back, and we went our separate ways. That's just how we did it. But look, my general feeling is I would have had more respect if KD either went to a team where he was the man and didn't have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, because they certainly didn't need Kevin Durant at that point. They probably would have been back in the same spot anyway. Or if he stayed in OKC and tried to do it there. They weren't far off. Now, the one thing I will say that he had in common with LeBron is LeBron left Cleveland to go to Miami, and for what he was able to do in Miami was learn how to win.
Yep.
He did learn how to win, and I think KD going to play for Steve Kerr and playing with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green gave him the same education that LeBron did. And you felt after that series with the Raptors that KD was as disconnected as LeBron was when they lost to the Spurs. Because when LeBron finally lost to the Spurs in that second finals, you felt that LeBron was already disconnected from that Miami team and a move was going to be made. So now this is KD's team. I honestly think that you have to get rid of Steve Nash, because Steve Nash, hell of a player, Hall of Fame player, which we know he is. But the Nets took a major risk on having a first-year coach. You have a lot of talent on this team between Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge. I know the last 2 guys I just said have a lot more wear and tear on those tires than some of the other ones, but you have a veteran team, and you need to have a coach who has that experience, who's be able to tell them what to do to win. Nash has never won anything. You know, he made it to the dance a couple times where he was getting close to the finals, but he never got there.
No, I mean that's a legit point to make. It would be really interesting if they were able to do it with a first-time coach. And I think if anybody can handle that, it is Steve Nash, because he had such a unique offensive style. But I mean, yeah, the general logic around this is that you have to have a coach who has won. Someone like a Rick Carlisle, someone like, I mean, not getting Greg Popovich, but even Tom Thibodeau, you know, Frank Vogel has won a championship and built a hell of a team in Indiana as well. But again, I'm not ready to give up on Steve Nash. I spent a lot of time around him when he was a player. He's very, very tough. He's very analytical. He sees the game in a way. Not all point guards, not all great players who are point guards make great coaches. There's this idea that a great point guard will be a great coach. It's not always true. But with Steve Nash, I think there's a chance that can be. So I would say patience with Nash. The issue, of course, being that how much patience can you have with a roster that's built to win like yesterday?
Yeah.
And so it's a legit point. And it's one that will be answered, I think, by how far they get in the postseason, ultimately.
All right, let's real quick go down the series. You tell me how many games and who wins the series and amount, and I'll do the same too with the series.
Are you listening?
Yeah. So the Phoenix Suns versus the number 8 seed.
I think it's 4-0. Doesn't matter who it is. Phoenix is, as they say, on fire.
The Miami Heat versus the 8 seed.
I'd say the same thing. The Heat are on fire. Everybody's healthy. They have everything. There's nothing missing. You don't look at that team and go, well, if they only had, they have a great coach, they have stars, they have point guard play, they have inside play, they have depth. Miami's great.
Yeah, I think, and you and I had said it before, PJ Tucker and Kyle Lowry are great additions to that team, and I think puts them over the edge to possibly represent the East in the finals this year. All right, Memphis and Minnesota.
I think Minnesota will get a game, but Memphis wins the series. Memphis has gone through a lot. They've grown together, as we've discussed. I like Memphis a whole lot. I don't think they're going to be out before the Western Conference Finals. I go Memphis in 6. I think in Minnesota we'll get 2 games. I think maybe they might steal one in Memphis and get one at home, but I think that's it. And that's me being generous. Yeah, that's me being generous. I'm being generous. I listen. Minnesota has already had their parade. We want a playoff game, okay? They have a banner hanging up for Karl Anthony Towns who won the 3-point shootout. We won something. So that's just the way it is. Okay. So I'm going to say, I'm more leaning towards what you're saying, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say 6. Nets Celtics. Man, I think if the Nets are just not a normal number 7 team. That's no.
And
especially if Simmons can come back, and he's missed so many games though. I don't know. I think that's a 6 or 7 game series. I really do. And
it's a pick 'em.
The Nets will win it, but I don't think it's going to be easy.
Yeah, I'm putting this in the universe, so it's not going to work out well for me. But I'm going to say Nets in either 6 or 7, and then what's going to end up happening is the Celtics are going to win in 5, and Jared Zero is going to
right.
Jared Zero will pop up and go ha ha ha. Let's go to the 3-6 matchups. The Warriors and the Nuggets. This is going to be a competitive series. It just matters which Nuggets show up. They were ravaged with injuries this year, but
what is going to show up?
Jokic, that's it.
The MVP.
Yeah.
Jokic is astounding. It's unfortunate that Jamal Murray in particular, but Porter, they just have too many injuries. And Steph Curry's ready to go.
Yeah.
So I think the Warriors are going to light it up and run them right off the court. Denver gets probably 2 games.
Yeah, I was thinking Warriors in 6 in that one. I think that's a fair assumption.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
And then the 3-6 matchup in the Eastern Conference, the Bucks and the Bulls. Like we were just talking about it before, the Bulls are so beat up right now. I think that's maybe a 5-game series for the Bucks.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that's tough.
Like it's over. Like
yeah. And you want to root for the Bulls too, because you're just like, you've had no success since that guy wearing number 23 was here. You got to do something. You had 1 year with Derrick Rose when he made the conference finals. You lost to LeBron.
The right moves.
And then the 4-5 series in the Western Conference, the Mavs and the Jazz. In my eyes, the Jazz have no excuse to not at least make this a 6-game series.
Yeah, they should win it in 5. I mean, they should win it in 5. They've been together for so long. They've had the same coaching staff. They have 2 legit stars. They have the defensive player of the year. I know politically he may not get it for whatever reason, but Rudy Gobert is the best defender in the league.
Yes.
You have Donovan Mitchell, who's an incredible leader. You have one of the best second-tier point guards in the league. You have the supporting cast. Granted, Jordan Clarkson has decided that he just is going to shoot every time he touches. He's turned into the frickin' James Harden of the Western Conference, and that's unfortunate. But Utah has all the pieces. I just don't have any confidence in them putting it together. And then you look at the season, how the season came along for Dallas after the Dinwiddie acquisition. They got rid of KP, who never played, didn't fit with Luka at all. Luka is astoundingly good, should be runner-up to MVP. Dinwiddie's been just fabulous, like he was before he got hurt in Brooklyn. And you got Brunson. They've got a whole bunch of platoon guys on the inside. They've got a lot of different ways to switch and cause matchup problems. That's how Dallas has had the success that they've had. If Utah enforced their will on Dallas, they could win the series. But I just don't think they will. I think Dallas comes out of it. I think it's a 6-game series and Dallas wins because Dallas has an identity and the Jazz do not.
I'll go with that. And I'm going to say, I'm going to play the other side. I'm going to say it's going to be the Jazz in 6. Because I also don't, for some reason, Donovan Mitchell doesn't start playing until April. We haven't said his name a lot on the show as of late, but Donovan Mitchell, in fact, I don't think we've mentioned Donovan Mitchell since the Jazz episode we did a few weeks back.
Mm-hmm.
Donovan Mitchell turns into a different.
He's
a
franchise player. But the Jazz, it's that identity question. The Jazz don't really know who they are.
And then in the East, the 4-5 series, the Toronto and Philadelphia. Look, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. It's gonna come down to coaching, whether it's Nick Nurse or Doc Rivers. Mm-hmm. If it's gonna come down to coaching, I'm going Nick Nurse, and I'm gonna go to Raptors, and I'm gonna go 6. They're gonna upset the Sixers.
Joel Embiid. Harden shows up. Is it the James Harden who shoots 5 for 28 from the field, but just keeps shooting, and they forget that Embiid is the one who got them there?
Well, it also matters which Joel Embiid shows up.
Yeah, well, that's true.
You know what I mean? And I just think that Nick Nurse has found a way to get his guys to run through a wall for him compared to the Philadelphia 76ers, where you're wondering where the infighting is going to start in this one. Like they took the attitude of it's us versus them when they lost Ben Simmons, and okay, we can't win without him. But you know what? This Sixers team outside of Embiid, Tobias Harris, for a guy they pay, or that guy that's getting a lot of money,
30-something million.
Yeah, he's earning a lot of money. He's not earning that money right now.
We knew that when they made the deal. I love Tobias Harris. He's another one of those guys in the right situation. He's not a $30 million player, but he's a great third option. He plays great defense. He'll rebound. He will score if you allow him to, but he doesn't pout if he doesn't get the ball. Tobias Harris is a great utility player, a great compliment.
He's a pro's pro.
Yeah.
You know what he is? I was trying to figure out.
He's a offensive Shane Battier.
I was actually going to go Turkoglu.
Okay. Yeah.
He's a 15-point guy, a night guy. He's a guy that he'll hit a big shot for you when you need him to every once in a while. But you don't want to put the game in his hands.
No, that would be a mistake.
Yeah.
You don't want it in James's. You can't have it in Harden's hands either. And they put it in Harden's hands, or he may do it himself, and that would be the downfall of Philadelphia.
It was funny too. And I'm gonna backtrack with Harden a little bit here. If you remember last year when he was hurt playing in Game 5, Game 7, I remember you even said to me, "You're like, he showed a good intestinal fortitude and wanting to be out there, wanting to play." Mm-hmm. But I still expected James Harden to hit a big shot. And then we started seeing during the regular season this year, in Philly's big games, he was nowhere to be found.
Yep.
Nowhere to be found. So, partner, that's the playoffs first round. The play-ins are good. We talked about some of the teams that didn't make it in, the Knicks and the Lakers, and their struggles and their situation. It's going to be really interesting. This time next week will be mid first round. We'll be able to check back in to see where we are. If I had to ask you to give a lock of a series, we just went through all the series. If I said to you, Bill, pick a series that you say is an automatic lock, that you think that it's going to go a certain way, which series would it be?
Phoenix in the West. Phoenix, they're not going to lose again. They're just everything's clicking. They've got great defense. Bridges, second best defender in the league. Chris Paul healthy. Even when he was out, Cameron Payne ran the show just fine. That team is clicking, and nobody's going to beat the Suns. I would say the same thing about Golden State. With Steph healthy, I don't think you're going to beat the Warriors in the first round.
Yeah.
In the Eastern Conference, I don't know. The only series I see as a lock to be confident in saying it's going to go 4-0 is that Miami series.
Yeah, I go with that. I'm going to go 2 other series for you. I honestly think it's a lock that Memphis and Minnesota. I think Memphis is going to win. And the more and more I'm thinking about the matchups and the experience, you have guys like Dylan Brooks, who's going to play big for Memphis. Like you said, Steven Adams. Look, a lot of guys who've had playoff experience. I think that's a 5-game series. The more and more I think about it, so I'm taking back my benefit of the doubt from Minnesota, and I'm putting it at 5. I'll let Minnesota have a game. And in the Eastern Conference, the more and more you and I just talked about it, the more and more I really like Toronto at Philadelphia. And the more and more I really, really like that Nets Celtics series is too close to call. I think if there's going to be any series in this first round of both the East and the West, I think Nets Celtics can go 7. And I think that can go down to the final quarter of Game 7. and if that's what happens, I'll be 100% honest with you.
Durant.
Yeah. I don't trust Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart in that type of spot. I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
I trust Kevin Durant, and I believe it or not, this is crazy. I trust Kyrie.
Well, you never know, but I know I've seen Kevin Durant in too many situations where the game was on the line, and that ice forms in his veins. And
yeah, but same thing. You could say the same thing about Kyrie, man. He hit that game against Golden State. He hit that shot. I think after that, it's just
you don't know for sure. Does the world go flat at the last minute? KD's gonna.
But the thing is, though, and I said this before, we can criticize Kyrie for the crazy things he says and does. But what comes to him on the court, we can never doubt him when he's on the court that he's giving 100%. And, I trust him, believe it or not, in a big spot, taking a big shot. Because if it comes down to a Game 7 final shot, the Celtics are going to put 7 guys on Durant. They're going to have fans come into the stands and just
put whoever you want. Unless you bring Olajuwon out of retirement and put him on Kevin Durant, I think Kevin –
But I also would like you to think about the drama of Kyrie hitting a game-winning shot in Game 7 in Boston. That would be amazing. That would be worse than the Magic Johnson and the Lakers beating the Celtics in the 80s. Like that would be the most hated thing ever. Bill, let's let everybody know where they can find you. Go for it, brother.
On Twitter is the most, that's where I'm the most active, at the Rocket Guy on Twitter, whether we're talking, of course, it's Astros season. We're 4-2. They're off tonight, unfortunately. Tough loss last night. But when I'm talking sports, I'm talking about it on Twitter at the Rocket Guy. If I were to write about the NBA, it happens at Back Sports Page. And, of course, the Hardwood Huddle is part of the Back Sports Page buffet of offerings. So, yeah.
Randy BSB, Instagram and Twitter. I'm on Facebook. Give me a follow. Follow Back Sports Page on all of its platforms. And my friend, we are out of time. I will see you next time here on the Hardwood Huddle.
Sounds like a plan, my man. Everybody stay safe.
Enjoy the playoffs, everybody. We'll see you next time.